Bangkok. Where do I even begin? The darling city of Thailand, bustling nightlife and vibrant street cultures, and indeed an unforgettable experience for all tourists who have been to the city. What about Singapore, my home city and country? Well, perhaps 30 years ago, if you're not in this part of the world, you might not have even heard of this developed nation that's merely a tiny red dot on the world map. Today, Bangkok and Singapore are famous for their own unique character and personality, so much so that people from all over the world are interested in living and working in these two wondrous cities. In this video, we're going to compare side by side Bangkok and Singapore in terms of cost of living, the work environment and opportunities, the safety, the efficiency and organization of each city, the education, the purchasing power if you work in these two cities, the wealth creation, and as well as comparing them as retirement destinations. In one of our previous videos, we did a whole cost outlay between Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur and Singapore, and also comparing the work income in each city. Do check that out where you have more numbers to look at. In today's video, we're going to go deeper between Bangkok and Singapore specifically. If you're new to this channel, just a quick introduction. My name is John, one half of the Corporate Breakout Couple. My wife, Fran and I early retired in 2020 and we travel around the world. And when we go to these cities like Singapore and Bangkok, we do a cost analysis and break down all the various costs on the ground so that we can do a side-by-side comparison. As Fran and I are familiar with both Bangkok and Singapore, and we have friends and family who lived and worked in both cities, we endeavor to provide you the most accurate and updated information. And as always, do hit the like button and subscribe to join our YouTube channel. Let's first compare the population and city size, starting with Bangkok. Bangkok currently has a size of around 1,569 square kilometers and the population stands at 11.2 million. In terms of foreigners and expats living in Bangkok, there's currently more than 500,000 people. As for Singapore, which is a city and country by itself, it has 700 square kilometers of land mass, about half of Bangkok. Its population by end 2023 stands at 6 million, of which 3.61 are Singapore citizens, 1.77 are foreigners and expats, and 540,000 are Singapore permanent residents. I would first like to establish that when you run a cost of living comparison between two different cities, especially when they are two different countries, it is not the best way for you to do a direct conversion, in this case baht to Sing dollars or Sing dollars to baht, and then compare which is cheaper or more expensive. Instead, you should always baseline the cost of that item in that particular city against the median income. As I've previously shared in my other video, which I compared Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur and Singapore, the end of 2023 median income is roughly around $750 to 1,002 in Bangkok, and for Singapore, it is at $3,850 US. Now, the appropriate way to run a comparison is to take an item that's commonly used in each city. For example, Bangkok, the street food, how much does it cost? It should be benchmarked against the Bangkok median income versus Singapore, the street or the hawker food benchmarked against the median income. And same for public transport as well. The BTS cost, let's say, for 5 stops in Bangkok and the MRT cost for 5 stops in Singapore. Let me provide you with a suitable example. Let's say a Thai wonton mee, a dry noodle in Bangkok, it costs roughly around $1.50 US. If you benchmark it against the median income, which is 1,200, that works out to be around 0.12%. In the Singapore context, with the hawker food, let's say a Chinese wonton mee costs around 5 to 6 Sing dollars, benchmark against 5,200 the median income, it also works out to be roughly around 0.12%, quite equivalent to Bangkok. Well, if you love all these numbers, do check out our previous videos for cost of living for Bangkok and Singapore, where we gave you end-to-end pricing on the ground for the various cost categories such as healthcare, groceries, food, accommodation, transport, and many more, and even provided you realistic budgets at the end if you're interested in retiring or living in Bangkok or Singapore. Before I continue, I would like to qualify something as well. In terms of median income, which is about 1,002 US for Bangkok, you need to understand that that number is actually pulled down by the greater Bangkok, people who are living in the rural areas, because those are accounted for as well. Many of the locals that's living in the rural areas, whereas if you are concentrated in the urban area, as a foreigner expat, I'm sure you wouldn't accept 1,002 US as your pay, right? So that number should be higher. Whereas for Singapore, because it's more homogeneous across the entire city, it's a country, it's a city, is small. So the 5,200 Sing dollars, which is 3,850 US dollars, is a bit more accurate representation of the average working person in Singapore. Now that we have more clarity on the median income, let's talk about the basic staples, which is your food, your transport, which is hawker, street food. They are both pretty affordable in both Bangkok and Singapore as established earlier, but let's say you go to a city like KL, it is almost double in terms of percentage. Not your 0.1%, it's roughly about 0.2% because it costs about 8-9 ringgit in KL divided by the median income of around 3,800 ringgit. That brings you to about 0.2%, which is almost double. Let's talk about food delivery. While there are plenty of options for both Bangkok and Singapore, the cost of food delivery is significantly lower in Bangkok than in Singapore. If you order from Line Man or GrabFood or any of other food delivery platforms, sometimes the price can be equal or lower than the actual original store itself in Bangkok, whereas compared to Singapore, slapped with a delivery fee, especially if you're ordering for a single person, sometimes it can be 50 to 60% higher. Comparing the street and hawker food taste in Bangkok and Singapore, if you're a foreigner and expat that's living in either of these two cities and from another part of the world, you might not be able to handle the strong tasting street food that Bangkok has to offer, which are typically spicy and also very sour as well. So you might not be able to handle the street food, which means you have to invest more money for your food at malls and international cuisine. Whereas in Singapore, the hawker food tastes tend to be more mellow and more acceptable to foreigners in terms of the staples. So it might be easier for you to be accustomed to the hawker food in Singapore. Just to add on, there are a lot of options for international cuisine in public hawker centers as well as air-conditioned food courts in the shopping malls, which are kept affordable in terms of pasta, Japanese cuisine, Korean cuisine, fish and chips, and all that, and it doesn't dent your wallet. Whereas in Bangkok, there's not as many such options at an entry-level price. In terms of food groceries, I would say both Bangkok and Singapore are well stocked in their supermarkets. For Bangkok, especially in the town areas, in Singapore, is spread all over in the different fair prices. Cold Storage and other supermarkets, Sheng Siong, they have very high quality produce at a very affordable price. I would say they are quite on par for both cities. Now let's talk about transport. In terms of private transport, cars in Singapore, we can forget about it. And if you're living in Bangkok, it's highly advisable not to own a vehicle as well because you can get by with Grab as well as BTS or MRT train rides. So public transport are both pretty comparable in both cities as well. In terms of healthcare, I'm assuming that it's taken care by the company that you're working for in either of the two cities. Now let's talk about accommodation. One of the key difference between the two different cities, starting with Singapore. As you know, Singapore accommodation prices are ridiculously high as well as rental. So that actually formulates a big part of your living expenses if you are a foreigner or expat that's working in Singapore. It might be as high as 40 to even 50% of your salary. Whereas for Bangkok, you can get a one-bedroom apartment somewhere off-center for even as low as 500 US dollars. Again, it depends on your median salary, which I'm expecting it to be higher than 1,200. So in terms of accommodation, it's a clear no fight for Bangkok, which is a lot more affordable and a lot more options as well compared to Singapore, which any part of Singapore that you are at, you can't run away from the high rental pricing. In terms of the work environment, note that if you're working in Thailand or in Bangkok for that matter, you will need to understand Thai to a certain degree in order to integrate with the locals and also be able to woo the big customers in Thailand, which probably expects you to present to them in some form or rather some Thai language. Whereas in Singapore, the entire working language is in English. You can fully function and get by with just knowing English. In terms of work exposure and international presence and career advancement, Singapore leads in that department because there's a lot of MNCs that set up their international or regional office in Singapore and use it as a hub to connect to the other regions, as well as a strong marketing appeal of Singapore compared to Bangkok, which of course is an exciting place to work in, but it does not promise as much career advancement and exposure too. In terms of work-life balance, the work stress as well as the work pace is a lot faster in Singapore compared to Bangkok, of course, which I actually did a video between Hong Kong and Singapore recently comparing the work pressures, and they are both, I would say, equally high compared to a developing country and also a city like Bangkok, which is slower pace of life where you can have better work-life balance. The organization and the efficiency in Singapore is really one of the best in the world, if I may add as a Singaporean, in terms of the integration of the various government apps, in terms of our national identity, our driving license. Everything is fully digitized and we can actually present it in Singapore just using our phone, and the speed and the efficiency of actually gathering information and how they are all tightly integrated together, that's really impressive in terms of the digitization in Singapore. For Bangkok, in terms of efficiency, it is not as efficient as Singapore in terms of getting paperwork done. In terms of digitization, it is more old school and it generally takes longer in the process to set up, let's say, a company in Bangkok, and you also have to overcome the Thai language barrier. In terms of safety, Singapore leads in their department as well. It is really safe within the entire Singapore, and you know there are some experiments that are set by some of the TikTokers where they left their handphones or their laptops on in the Starbucks when it was untouched after a few hours, whereas in Bangkok it's relatively safe in the main town areas. But if you start to go into the soils, you know, the different long roads that goes deep into the more residential area, it might get a bit more dangerous, or you might feel that it's a bit more dangerous because the street lights are dim and you might not feel as safe walking in the middle of the night. Let's compare the educational system in Bangkok and Singapore. Starting with Singapore, the top 2 universities in Singapore, the NUS and NTU, is within the top 15 ranking in the world and top 5 in Asia. Whereas for Thailand, the Bangkok University, Chulalongkorn, is around 100 over in Asia and 200 over in the world. In terms of international schools for Bangkok and Singapore, there are plenty of options if you're a foreign expat intending to send your kids into those schools. But in Singapore, you can actually choose to send them into the national schools or the public schools under the Ministry of Education, and they are of a very high level and at the same time can save you a lot of money compared to sending them to international schools. Now, talking about currencies cross-border, in terms of earning power and earning capacity, is definitely better to be earning in Sing dollars, because Sing dollars has been one of the top performing Asian currencies for the last 10 years and it's held its ground against US dollars, which means in terms of earning in Sing dollars, you have stronger purchasing power, especially when you do travel around the region compared to earning in Thai baht, for example. Also, with a higher earning capacity, you can save more money in terms of Sing dollars and also help you accelerate your wealth creation compared to earning in Thai baht. Finally, let's talk about retirement in Bangkok versus Singapore. Well, I would say it's really subjective here. It depends on the quality of life that you're looking for as a retiree. One clear advantage that Thailand and Bangkok has over Singapore is the openness to foreigners retiring in that particular city or country, where you can have like a Thai elite visa for you to stay for 5, 10, even 20 years. Whereas for Singapore, if you're not a Singapore permanent resident or a citizen, it's very difficult for you to stay and retire there. If you are somebody looking for minimalistic, simple, bare-bone, basic standard of living, you can actually stay in Bangkok to meet that criteria, because the money works harder for you there compared to Singapore, where the general cost is a lot higher, and if you're not working over there, earning a higher salary, it's difficult for you to stretch your dollars. And Bangkok has a huge spectrum of living conditions and standard for you. If you want to go really cheap, you can go out to the outskirts, or you can stay smack in the middle of town and also enjoy the high life if you choose to, whereas in Singapore, it's generally a lot more costly. Of course, you can live the high life, but there's a really expensive standard of living that you must be prepared for. In summary, both Bangkok and Singapore are great options for you to consider living and working or to retire in. The Southeast Asian culture, the diversity, the food, and the warmness of the people, these are great consideration factors. I hope this video has given you great insights into these two beautiful cities. I'm John, one half of the Corporate Breakout Couple. Do hit the like button and subscribe to join our YouTube channel so that we can create more videos like this for you. Otherwise, I'm signing off. See you in the next video. Hey, do join us for our free masterclass webinars where you are up your financial literacy, break out the corporate rat race, and gun for your financial independence. Do register for it now.